Professor Dave has shown himself to be a scientific warlord on YouTube with his vast selection of videos on mathematics, astronomy, and more.
However, when it comes to the origins of life, Dave can't help himself to be anything more than wrong.
For this reason, we are here to clean up all of it.
We're here to clean up all of his Cowpies!
Today we are looking back at the famous Kent Hovind vs. Professor Dave debate that occurred back in January this year. At first glance, Dave appears to win, but upon closer inspection, his argument was dazzled with misinformation. Let's take a look at some of his opening statement.
Done here. In the 50s, it was shown that amino acids form spontaneously in early Earth conditions.
The amino acids were racemic and not homochiral, therefore not suitable for life. Homochirality is essential for forming polypeptides that contain alpha helices and beta sheets. Miller assumed an atmosphere made of ammonia, but that is no longer credible, so Professor Dave should not advertise early Miller as replicating plausible early Earth conditions, but rather advertise them as fantasized early Earth conditions.
And the same has been shown for nucleotides. Ribonucleotides polymerize on hot clay to produce RNA.
One can't have ribonucleotides without nucleobases. Nucleobases have half-lives with cytosine at about 19 days and thymine at 56 years. The result is they won't last long and will be terribly misproportioned to be able to make RNAs that have cytosines. Thus, time is the enemy of abiogenesis, not its friend, because so many prebiotic chemicals have half-lives.
One can't have ribonucleotides without nucleobases and pentose or deoxypentose sugars like ribose or deoxyribose. Not to mention, RNAs laying out in the open won't last long.
Some of the best clay catalysis experiments starting off with proper curl and properly bonded nucleotides is Jonas' assumption, and these can only form pathetic oligos of not much more than 100 bases of that.
Ribozymes do not necessarily have self-replication ability. Many of the ribozymes are the sort that cut other RNAs to pieces rather than duplicate them. Let us call these sorts of ribozymes cleavers. RNA cleavers are usually easier to form than replicators, thus the RNA world is likely to shred itself to ribbons rather than evolve into a cellular organism, which is made of much more than RNAs. This would be more like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not the genesis of life.
And we've observed ribozymes which have catalytic function and thus offer an early mode of self-replication. Amino acids must also polymerize to form proteins, and there are several viable hypotheses as to how this happened.
This is the worst Cowpie made yet. Those are not viable hypotheses, those are fantasies. Random polypeptides rarely make anything useful, and certainly not proteins and complexes such as helicases, polymerases, tRNA synthetases, and transmembrane proteins, all essential for cellular life.
If Kent is interested in discussing organometallic catalysis, I would be happy to elucidate further. Finally, amphiphilic molecules spontaneously self-assemble into ordered structures like micelles and bilayers, making boundary formation the least mysterious aspect of abiogenesis.
Without transmembrane proteins, micelles and liposome-like structures are a nice way to entomb materials necessary for life. Thus, such lipid assemblies are essentially coffins. Not a protocell for life, we're talking about ways to make life, not ways to make funerals before life gets started.
Only with knowledge in biochemistry has abiogenesis become quite sensible, so it's not surprising that Kent rejects it.
Nobel Prize winner in chemistry Richard Smalley rejected abiogenesis, as well as other respected chemists like Marcos Eberlin and James Tour. Not to mention Steve Benner, an abiogenesis researcher of the first order, lamented that abiogenesis research presently faces unresolved paradoxes such as the asphalt paradox, where organism chemicals left to themselves tend to become asphalt, not life. And finally, top evolutionary biologist Eugene Koonin has so despaired over the RNA world hypothesis, he suggested we must invoke an infinite number of unseen, unknowable, untestable universes so that one extremely likely universe could evolve RNAs toward life, with the faith assumption we just happen to live in that one universe. Such faith beliefs in unseen, unknowable, untestable multiverses is no more outrageous than invoking special creation. Thus, people who actually understand biochemistry, including abiogenesis researchers and top evolutionary biologists like Koonin themselves, do not indicate the problem is anywhere near being solved, as Professor Dave insinuates.
If you want to learn the problems with abiogenesis, learn them from real professors and scientists with Ivy League credentials from Harvard and MIT.